The doors of the Supreme Judgment Chamber weighed more than a human starship. They were carved from the compressed core of a dead star, polished until they reflected the light of 1,000 holographic displays. When they opened, the sound echoed through 17 levels of galleries, packed with alien dignitaries. Ambassador Raymond Cole walked through those doors alone. He was 53 years old. He had gray hair cut short and a face that showed every year of service to Earth. His uniform was simple compared to the flowing robes and crystalline armor worn by the beings around him. He carried no weapons. He had no guards. Behind him, visible through the massive window that dominated the far wall, Earth's diplomatic vessel hung in the void. The Resolute was small, almost insignificant compared to the warships of the Velkari Empire that surrounded the station. But something about its presence made the ancient species in the chamber uncomfortable. High Chancellor Meridian rose from the central platform. She was a being of pure light contained within a geometric cage of living crystal. Her voice resonated through every translation device in the chamber simultaneously. You were summoned to answer for crimes against galactic law, human. The Council of 10,000 Worlds has deliberated. You stand accused of unauthorized military action, violation of protected space, and the deployment of biological weapons against civilized species. Raymond stopped at the center of the chamber. The floor beneath him was transparent, showing the spinning galaxy below. Around him, tiers of seats rose toward a ceiling lost in shadow. 12,000 representatives watched him with eyes, sensors, and organs humans had no names for. Some were massive, filling entire sections with their bulk. Some were tiny, barely visible without magnification. Some existed partially in dimensions that human minds could not perceive. All of them had one thing in common. They were afraid of what humanity had become. Before you deliver judgment, Raymond said, his voice steady, I request that the Council review one final piece of evidence. He reached into his pocket. Security drones from 8 different species immediately trained weapons on him. Energy crackled. Targeting systems locked. Raymond did not flinch. This is a recording, he continued. The distress signal that Earth received 62 standard days ago. The cry for help that started everything. High Chancellor Meridian's light flickered with irritation. The Council has reviewed your justifications extensively. You reviewed translations, summaries, reports, filtered through 17 different diplomatic protocols. Raymond activated the device in his hand. This time, you will hear what we heard. What woke something in humanity that we spent 3 centuries trying to forget. The recording played. It was a child's voice. The species was called the Luminari, gentle beings of soft light who had evolved on a paradise world with no predators. They were beloved across the galaxy for their art, their kindness, their music that could make even the coldest species weep. The child was screaming. What she described was beyond nightmare. Creatures emerging from tears in reality itself. Parents consumed while trying to protect their young. An entire civilization being devoured by things that fed on consciousness, on fear, on the light that gave the Luminari their name. The recording lasted 4 minutes and 37 seconds. When it ended, the chamber was silent. Raymond looked up at the High Chancellor, and for the first time, his diplomatic mask cracked. What lay beneath it was something older, something that had evolved on a world where survival meant becoming the most dangerous thing in any environment. You want to know why Earth did what we did? He said quietly. Why we broke every protocol your civilization established over 1 million years. Let me tell you the story. 62 days earlier, the night shift at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station was quiet. Dr. Anna Reyes was reviewing routine transmissions when her equipment detected something that should have been impossible. A distress signal on it. Frequency that Earth was not supposed. To be able to receive. The Galactic Council had shared limited communication technology with humanity during first contact. Enough to participate in basic diplomacy, not enough to access the emergency channels reserved for full members of galactic civilization. What the Council did not know was that human engineers had spent 30 years quietly improving every piece of technology they were given. It was not theft. It was not violation. It was simply what humans did. They took things apart. They figured out how they worked. They made them better. Anna's hands trembled as she decoded the signal. When she understood what she was hearing, she triggered an alert that woke every major leader on Earth within the hour. Admiral Victor Okonkwo arrived at the United Nations Space Command before dawn. He was 64 years old, a veteran of humanity's first interstellar conflicts, a man who had seen more death than anyone should have to witness. When he listened to the recording of the luminary child, something in his eyes went cold. Where? He asked. A colony world called Sanctuary, 200 light years from Earth. Dr. Reyes pulled up stellar charts. The signal is 3 days old. Standard protocols would require us to forward it to the Galactic Council and wait for authorized response. What is the Council's standard response to these creatures? Dr. Reyes hesitated. The beings attacking Sanctuary are called the Void. They have been a known threat for over 10,000 years. The Council's protocol is containment. Quarantine the affected world. Wait for the infestation to burn itself out. How long does that take? Decades. Sometimes centuries. She swallowed. No species has ever successfully fought the Void directly. They exist partially outside normal space. Conventional weapons pass through them. Admiral Okonkwo stared at the recording timestamp. 3 days. The child who sent that message had been screaming for 3 days while the galaxy followed protocols. Get me the Earth Council, he said. Emergency session. Highest priority. Within 6 hours, the leaders of humanity had gathered. They listened to the recording. They reviewed the tactical assessments. They understood what responding would mean. Violation of galactic law. Potential war with the Council. The end of humanity's careful diplomatic position. Built over 3 centuries of patience and restraint. Prime Minister Helena Vasquez spoke first. She was 61 years old, a grandmother, a woman who had dedicated her life to peace. How many luminari are still alive on Sanctuary? Approximately 4 million, concentrated in the capital city. The Void are surrounding them. Based on previous incidents, complete consumption will take another 2 weeks. Helena looked around the chamber. Every face showed the same expression: horror, anger, and something else. Something that the galaxy had never understood about humanity. They were not asking whether to act. They were asking how quickly they could get there. Launch the fleet, Helena said. All of it. Admiral Okonkwo nodded. He had been waiting for those words, hoping for them, dreading what came next. There is something else the Council should know, he said. For 300 years, we have presented ourselves as a peaceful species, primitive, harmless, eager to learn from our betters. He stood. That was a lie. We knew from the moment of first contact that the galaxy saw us as prey, so we prepared to become predators. He activated a display showing Earth's true military capability. The room fell silent. We have been building weapons the Council does not know about, training soldiers who can survive conditions that would kill any other species, developing technology that our scientists believe can hurt the Void. He paused. We call them Deathworlders, because that is what Earth is, a death world, and we are what death worlds create. The message reached the Galactic Council 12 hours later. Earth's entire fleet had launched toward luminary space. 200 warships, 50,000 soldiers. Technology that should not exist. Council demanded an explanation. Earth's response was 3 words that no species had ever dared to speak to the most powerful governing body in the galaxy. We are coming. In the Judgment Chamber, Ambassador Raymond Cole finished his introduction. You want to know what happens when Deathworlders hear children screaming? He smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. We stopped being diplomatic. The High Chancellor's light dimmed with something that might have been fear. Tell us, she said. Tell us everything. And Raymond began to explain what Earth had unleashed upon the galaxy. The UNSC carrier Thunderborn cut through space like a blade through silk. It was the flagship of Earth's hidden fleet. 3 kilometers of blackened metal and fury wrapped around engines that burned hotter than small stars. Inside its hull, 2,000 crew members prepared for a battle that every species in the galaxy considered impossible. Captain Elise Brennan stood on the bridge, watching the countdown display tick toward their destination. She was 46 years old, with sharp eyes and a scar across her jaw from a training accident that had nearly killed her. She had commanded warships for 20 years. She had never commanded one toward certain death. Time to arrival? She asked. 14 hours, her navigation officer replied. The Council containment fleet has already reached Sanctuary. They are preparing Protocol Omega. Protocol Omega, the complete sterilization of a planet. 4 million luminari would be vaporized to prevent the void from spreading, clean, efficient, the way the galaxy had handled this threat for 10,000 years. Elise's hands tightened on the railing. Get me Admiral Okonkwo. The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired. The weight of what they were doing showed in every line of his face. Captain, what is your status? We will arrive before they can fire, sir. But we cannot fight the entire containment fleet. Even with everything we have, you will not need to fight them. Okonkwo leaned forward. The Council is afraid of us, Elise. They have been afraid since first contact. They gave us limited technology because they did not want us to become a threat. They kept us isolated because they saw what we were. And what are we, sir? Survivors. His voice hardened. Every species in that council evolved on worlds where life was easy. Gentle climates, abundant food, cooperative ecosystems. Earth was different. Our world tried to kill us every single day for 4 billion years. Everything on Earth evolved to fight, to hunt, to destroy. And we became the apex predators of a planet full of apex predators. Elise nodded slowly. The Deathworlder theory. Not a theory anymore. The Council has classified Earth as a Category 7 Death World, the highest rating they have. Any other intelligent species that evolved in our conditions either destroyed themselves or was destroyed by their environment. We are the only ones who made it. How does that help us against the containment fleet? Okonkwo smiled, and there was something cold in it. Because they know what we are. They know that if they fire on you, you will not run. You will fight. And even if they destroy you, Earth will send more ships. And more, until there is nothing left of us or nothing left of them. He paused. They will not risk that. Not for the Luminary. Not for anyone. They will stand aside, Captain. And you will land your Deathworlders on Sanctuary. In the cargo bay of the Thunderborn, Sergeant Major David Cole prepared his team for deployment. He was Raymond Cole's younger brother, though the 2 men could not have been more different. Raymond was a diplomat, a man of words and negotiation. David was a weapon. He stood 2 meters tall, and every centimeter of his body had been modified for combat. Enhanced bone density, artificial muscle fibers, neural implants that accelerated his reaction time beyond human limits. His eyes had been replaced with sensors that could see in spectrums no natural creature possessed. He was a Deathworlder, one of Earth's secret weapons, a human being rebuilt for war against threats that the galaxy considered unbeatable. His team consisted of 11 other enhanced soldiers. Each one had volunteered for modifications that most species would consider torture. Each one had trained for years in environments that would kill ordinary humans within minutes. Each one had been told that this mission would probably end with their deaths. None of them had hesitated. "Listen up," David said, his voice carrying through the bay. "The Void are not like anything we have faced before. They exist partially outside our dimension. Standard weapons will not touch them. Energy rounds will pass through. Explosives will disperse harmlessly." He held up a device that looked like a simple metal rod. "This is what we are using instead. The science team calls it a resonance disruptor. I call it a god killer." The device hummed with contained power. "The Void feed on consciousness, on fear, on the electromagnetic patterns that make up intelligent thought. But human consciousness is different. We evolved on Earth, surrounded by death, and our minds developed a kind of density that other species do not have. When we channel that consciousness through these weapons, we create a frequency that tears the Void apart." Lieutenant Maria Santos, his second in command, raised her hand. "What is the catch, Sergeant Major?" David paused. "The weapons require direct neural connection. The more power we channel, the more damage we take. Extended use will cause brain hemorrhaging, death." No one spoke. "This is not a suicide mission," David continued. "But it is not a safe one either. Every one of you knew that when you volunteered. The question is simple. Are you willing to die so that 4 million innocent beings can live?" The answer was unanimous. Not in words, but in the way every Deathworlder stood straighter. In the way their eyes hardened. In the way they became what Earth had created them to be. 12 hours later, the Thunderborn dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the sanctuary system. What they found was worse than anyone had anticipated. The Council containment fleet consisted of 47 warships, arranged in a perfect sphere around the planet. Their weapons were charging. Protocol Omega was minutes away from execution. But that was not what made Captain Brennan's blood run cold. The planet itself was wrong. Sanctuary had once been a paradise world, covered in forests of crystalline trees and oceans that glowed with bioluminescent life. Now, half of its surface was covered in darkness. Not shadow, not night, absolute absence. Places where reality itself had been torn away. The Void had been feeding for weeks. They had grown stronger than any previous infestation in recorded history. "Open a channel to the containment fleet," Brennan ordered. The face of a Volcari admiral appeared on screen. His species was reptilian, cold-blooded in every sense. His eyes held nothing but contempt. "Human vessel, you have no authority here. Withdraw immediately, or you will be destroyed." Brennan smiled. It was the same smile her brother Raymond would show the Council weeks later. A family trait, perhaps. The smile of people who had stopped being afraid. "Admiral, I have 300 crew members on this ship. You have over 100,000 on your fleet. If you fire on us, every single one of your people will die." The Admiral's tongue flickered with amusement. "You threaten us? With one ship?" "I am not threatening, Admiral. I am informing you of consequences. Earth has spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment. You do not know what we can do. You do not know what we have become. Fire on us, and you will learn." She leaned forward. "Or stand aside and let us save those people. Your choice." The Admiral stared at her for a long moment. Then he cut the channel. For 3 agonizing minutes, no one spoke. The containment fleet held position, weapons charged, ready to obliterate the Thunderborn with a single volley. Then, slowly, the fleet began to move. Ships withdrew from their positions, opening a corridor toward the planet. They were standing a side dot in the cargo bay. Sergeant Major David Cole received the deployment order. His team moved toward the drop pods with the calm efficiency of professionals who had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. "What is down there?" Lieutenant Santos asked as she secured her harness. David checked his resonance disruptor one final time. 4 million people who are counting on us, and things that have been killing civilizations since before humanity existed. He met her eyes. Time to show the galaxy what Deathworlders can do. The drop pods launched, screaming toward a planet where nightmares had become real. Behind them, the containment fleet watched in silence, and on the surface of Sanctuary, the Void felt something they had not experienced in 10,000 years. Something that was not afraid. The drop pod hit the surface of Sanctuary at 300 kilometers per hour. Impact systems absorbed most of the force, but Sergeant Major David Cole still felt his bones rattle as the craft tore through crystalline vegetation and buried itself in alien soil. He was moving before the dust settled. His enhanced muscles tore through the pod's restraints like paper. His modified eyes adjusted instantly to the strange light of a dying world. Around him, 11 other pods were opening, spilling Deathworlders onto a battlefield that no species had ever survived. The capital city of Sanctuary rose before them, a masterpiece of luminary architecture that was slowly being consumed by darkness. Spires of living crystal reached toward clouds that churned with unnatural colors. Streets that had once glowed with gentle light were now corridors of shadow and terror. And everywhere, the void, they manifested as tears in reality itself. Places where the universe simply stopped existing and something else looked through. They had no fixed form. They shifted constantly, sometimes appearing as shadows with too many limbs, sometimes as geometric impossibilities that hurt to look at, sometimes as nothing at all except a feeling of absolute wrongness. David had studied reports of void attacks. He had watched recordings of entire civilizations being consumed. He had thought he understood what he was facing. He was wrong. The first void that noticed him did not attack. It simply looked at him with something that might have been curiosity. For 10,000 years, intelligent beings had run from these creatures, had screamed, had fed them with terror until they grew fat on fear. David raised his resonance disruptor and smiled. "Hello," he said. "I am from Earth, and I am here to kill you." He fired. The weapon did not produce light or sound. It produced a pulse of concentrated human consciousness, shaped into a frequency that resonated with the dimensional barriers the void used to protect themselves. The creature that had consumed civilizations, that had ended species, that had been immortal since before humanity existed, screamed. It was the first sound a void had ever made. And then it died. Lieutenant Santos landed beside him, already firing. Another void fell. Then another. The Deathworlders moved forward in perfect formation. 12 humans against an army of nightmares. And the nightmares were losing. "Sergeant Major," Santos reported, "something is happening." "They are retreating." David paused, scanning the battlefield. She was right. The void were pulling back from the human advance, clustering around the areas of deepest concentration. For the first time in recorded history, they were afraid. "They are not retreating," he said. "They are regrouping. They have never encountered anything that could hurt them before. They are learning. How long until they adapt?" "I do not know." He checked his neural readout. The resonance disruptor was already causing damage. Minor hemorrhaging in his frontal lobe. Nothing critical yet. But we have to reach the survivors before they figure out how to fight back. The Luminari had gathered in the central temple complex, the last place where their light still held the darkness at bay. 4 million survivors out of a population that had once numbered 50 million. Families huddled together, their soft bodies glowing faintly with the bioluminescence that defined their species. Children cried in frequencies that humans could not hear but could feel in their hearts. Elder Bright Moon coordinated the defense from the temple's highest spire. She was ancient by luminary standards, her light dimming with age, but her mind remained sharp. She had sent the distress signal that reached Earth, had kept hope alive when everyone else had given. Now she watched her display as something. Impossible approached the temple's outer barrier. What are they? She asked her assistant. The scanners identify them as human, Elder, but they are not dying. Bright Moon had met humans before. Diplomatic functions. Cultural exchanges. She remembered them as strange creatures, solid and dense, where luminari were soft and luminous. Friendly enough, but primitive, limited, not the kind of species that could save anyone. The creatures approaching her temple were different. They moved through the void-infested streets without fear. They fought the darkness with weapons that somehow worked. They died protecting each other and somehow kept fighting anyway. One of them reached the barrier first. He was massive by human standards, scarred and modified, with eyes that glowed with artificial light. He looked up at the spire where Bright Moon stood and raised one hand in greeting. Then he turned and faced the approaching, void with nothing but his body between them and the survivors. Open the barrier, Bright Moon ordered. Elder, if we lower our defenses, the void will enter. If those humans fall, we die anyway. Open the barrier and let them in. The next 3 hours were the longest of David Cole's life. His team established a perimeter around the temple complex, while Thunderborn's shuttles began evacuating survivors. The Luminari moved slowly, their bodies not designed for urgency, and every minute cost more lives. The void attacked in waves. They had learned from their initial losses. They no longer approached individually, but in coordinated groups, trying to overwhelm the humans through sheer numbers. They probed the Deathworlders' defenses, testing for weaknesses, adapting with terrifying speed. Private Thomas Reed was the first to fall. A void emerged directly behind him, bypassing the normal dimensional barriers. It consumed his consciousness before he could turn around. His body continued fighting for 11 seconds, neural implants running on automatic, before collapsing. The team did not stop to mourn. There was no time. Corporal Yuki Tanaka fell an hour later, her brain finally giving out from sustained use of the resonance disruptor. She had killed more void than anyone else on the team. She died with her weapon still firing, her last act a burst of consciousness that tore through a dozen creatures advancing on a shuttle, full of children. David kept fighting. His own neural damage was approaching critical levels. He could feel his memories starting to fragment, connections in his brain dissolving under the strain. He did not stop. Sergeant Major, Santos reported, the last shuttle is loading now. We need to withdraw. David looked at the temple. A group of luminary children was being guided toward the final shuttle by their parents. They were glowing softly, their light like candles in an ocean of darkness. They were beautiful. They were why he was here. I will hold the line, he said. Get on that shuttle. Sir, that is a suicide order. No. David smiled, and despite everything, it was a genuine expression. That is a guardian's duty. Now go, Lieutenant. Someone has to tell my brother what happened here. Santos hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to stay, to fight beside her commander. But she understood. Someone had to survive to tell the story. She ran for the shuttle. David Cole turned to face the advancing void alone. His weapon was nearly depleted. His brain was failing. His body had suffered wounds that would have killed an unmodified human 3 times over. He thought about his brother Raymond, who would probably have to explain all of this to the Council. He thought about Earth, the death world that had created him. He thought about the children on that shuttle, who would grow up because of what he did today. Then he raised his weapon and charged into the darkness. On the Thunderborn's bridge, Captain Brennan watched the final shuttle lift off. Below it, a single human signature fought against an ocean of nightmares. The signature flickered, dimmed, did not go out. "Captain," her sensor officer whispered, "he is still fighting." She did not respond. There was nothing to say. The shuttle reached safe altitude. The containment fleet hung in space around them, watching in silence. 4 million Luminary survivors huddled in the Thunderborn's cargo bays, saved from extinction by beings they had never met. On the surface, Sergeant Major David Cole continued to fight. His body failed piece by piece, but his consciousness remained, channeled through a weapon that turned human will into something that could kill gods. The last reading from his neural implant showed a single word, repeated until transmission ceased: "Worth it." Elder Brightmoon stood in the Thunderborn's observation deck, watching her home world shrink in the distance. The void had won the planet. Sanctuary was lost, another world consumed by the endless darkness. But her people had survived. A human officer approached her carefully, aware that Luminari were fragile, easily harmed by careless contact. "Elder, the captain wishes to know if there is anything we can provide for your people." Brightmoon turned to face the officer. He was young by human standards, barely an adult, with eyes that had not yet learned to hide their emotions. He looked exhausted, traumatized, but beneath all of that, she saw something she had not seen in any species before: commitment, purpose, the absolute refusal to abandon those who needed help. "Your soldier," she said quietly. "The one who held the line." "What was his name?" "Sergeant Major David Cole, Elder. He gave his life for my people, for children he had never met, for a species that never asked for his help." The young officer nodded. "Yes, Elder, that is what we do." Brightmoon's light shifted to colors that no translator could adequately interpret: grief, gratitude, wonder. "Why?" she asked. "Your council thinks you are monsters. Your own galaxy treats you as primitives. Why would you sacrifice so much for strangers?" The officer considered the question carefully before responding. "Because that is what Earth taught us, Elder. On our world, survival meant helping each other, protecting the weak, standing together against threats that no individual could face alone. We did not evolve to be predators. We evolved to be guardians." He paused. "Even if the people we protect never know our names." Brightmoon closed her eyes, or the luminary equivalent. When she opened them, her light had stabilized, brighter than it had been since the attack began. "Then I will make sure the galaxy knows," she said, "what humanity did here, what they sacrificed, what they truly are." She looked out at the stars. "The Council calls you Deathworlders. They mean it as an insult. But I saw what your Deathworlders do. They die so that others may live." Her voice carried through the observation deck, reaching other Luminary survivors who had gathered to hear. "That is not a curse. That is a gift, and the galaxy should learn to be grateful for it." Ambassador Raymond Cole received news of his brother's death while preparing for the most important diplomatic mission in human history. The message arrived through secure channels, encrypted 17 times, reduced to cold facts that could not convey the weight of what had been lost. He read it twice. Then he locked it away in a compartment of his mind and continued working. There would be time for grief later. Right now, 4 million survivors needed him to succeed. The Galactic Council Station Concordance hung in neutral space, a massive construct that had served as the seat of interstellar government for 3 million years. It was home to diplomatic missions from over 10,000 species. A place where wars were ended and alliances forged, where the fate of civilizations was decided by beings who had mastered the stars. Raymond's shuttle docked at a section reserved for minor species. The slight was intentional. Earth had been a member of the galactic community for 3 centuries, but the Council still treated humanity like children who had wandered into an adult conversation. That was about to change. He was met by a delegation of Velkari security officers who searched him with equipment designed to detect threats that humans could not imagine. They found nothing, because Raymond was exactly what he appeared to be. A diplomat. A man of words. The fact that words could be more dangerous than any weapon was something the Velkari had never understood. His first meeting was with High Chancellor Meridian herself. She received him in a chamber that shifted through geometries, designed to remind visitors of her species' mastery over dimensional physics. Most beings found the environment disorienting. Even nauseating Doc Raymond walked through it without hesitation. He had practiced. Ambassador Cole, Meridian's voice resonated through frequencies that made his teeth ache. You arrive under circumstances that your species should find concerning. I arrive under circumstances that your council created. High Chancellor. Raymond took a seat without being invited. Another calculated insult that would have meant death for most species. Shall we discuss them? You have violated 43 treaties, deployed weapons of forbidden design, killed creatures that the Council has protected for 10,000 years. Her light pulsed with colors that Raymond's translator struggled to interpret. Your species faces consequences that will define its future. The Void were killing luminary children. High Chancellor. The Council's response was to let it happen. Raymond leaned forward. What consequences do you face for that decision? The chamber fell silent. No one had ever spoken to Meridian this way. Not in 3 million years. The Void are a natural phenomenon, she said finally. They cannot be stopped. Protocol Omega exists because it is the only effective response. It was the only effective response. Earth has changed that. You killed 3 of them. There are billions. Raymond smiled. It was the same expression his brother had worn when facing the darkness alone. We killed 3 of them with 12 soldiers and experimental weapons. What do you think we will do with 100 years of preparation? The implications hung in the air. Every species on the Council had lived in fear of the Void since the dawn of their civilizations. The knowledge that these nightmares could be fought, could be killed, changed everything. It made Earth the most valuable ally in the galaxy. It also made Earth the most dangerous threat. Over the following weeks, Raymond navigated a political landscape more complex than anything Earth had faced before. Factions formed around humanity's future. Some wanted to embrace the Deathworlders as protectors. Others wanted to destroy them before they became too powerful. Most simply wanted to understand what they were dealing with. The Luminari became his greatest allies. Elder Brightmoon had survived the evacuation and now served as her species representative to the Council. Her testimony about the Battle of Sanctuary spread through diplomatic channels like fire. Impossible to suppress, impossible to ignore. She described humans who fought without hope, who died protecting strangers, who faced the darkness not because they had to, but because they could not stand idle while innocents suffered. They call themselves Deathworlders, Brightmoon told the Council Assembly. They mean it as a description of their home planet. But I have seen what they truly are. They are not dealers of death. They are guardians against it. Other species began to come forward. Small civilizations that had suffered under Council neglect. Races that had lost worlds to threats the major powers considered acceptable losses. They looked at Earth and saw something new. Hope. The Velkari Empire responded with aggression. Admiral Velkaithos, commander of the containment fleet that had witnessed the Battle of Sanctuary, demanded that Earth surrender its military technology for inspection. When Raymond refused, the admiral threatened military action. "Your species is too young to understand what you are challenging," Velkathos hissed through his translator. "The Velkari have maintained order in this galaxy for 1,000,000 years. We will not allow primitives from a death world to disrupt that order." Raymond studied the admiral with calm eyes. "Your containment fleet had 47 warships. You could have reached Sanctuary before the void consumed half the population. You chose to wait. You chose to let them die." Protocol required assessment of the threat level. Standard procedures. 4 million luminari are alive because humans ignored your procedures. Raymond stood. "Admiral, your species has spent 1,000,000 years maintaining order. In 300 years, Earth has done something none of you ever accomplished. We have given the galaxy hope that the void can be defeated." He walked toward the exit. "Threaten us again, and we will give the galaxy something else. Proof that the Velkari can be defeated too." The assassination attempt came that night. Raymond was returning to his quarters when his security detail detected anomalous energy signatures. Someone had planted a dimensional rift generator in his path, a device that would have torn him apart at the molecular level. The attack failed because human engineers had modified the standard security scanners months ago. They had anticipated this. Earth had anticipated everything. The next morning, Raymond delivered a private message to the Velkari delegation. The message contained specifications for the resonance disruptor technology, along with targeting data that showed exactly how effective the weapons would be against Velkari neural structures. He was not threatening them. He was informing them of consequences. The Velkari withdrew their military threat that afternoon. In the days before the trial, Raymond received an unexpected visitor. High Chancellor Meridian requested a private audience, away from recording devices and diplomatic observers. They met in a garden designed to simulate the conditions of her species' home world. Reality flexed and shifted around them, but Meridian's light remained steady. "You are an unusual human," she said. "Your brother died on Sanctuary. Most beings would be consumed by grief. I am consumed by purpose," Raymond replied. "David gave his life so that others could live. The best way I can honor him is to ensure that sacrifice means something." Meridian was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried harmonics that the translator struggled with. Sorrow, respect, fear. "I have governed this council for 12,000 years. In that time, I have seen species rise and fall, civilizations born and extinguished, threats emerge and consume and fade. The void have been a constant through all of it, an enemy that could not be defeated, only endured." She turned to face him directly. "Your species changes that equation. If humans can kill the void, you can potentially end a threat that has terrorized the galaxy since before my kind achieved sentience. That seems like a positive development. It terrifies me." Her light flickered with emotions, too complex for translation. "Because if you can end the void, what else can you end? The Velkari? The Council itself? Where does the power of Deathworlders stop?" Raymond considered his response carefully. This was the question that would define humanity's future. "My brother gave his life for luminary children he had never met," he said finally. He did not ask who they were. He did not calculate whether saving them served Earth's interests. He saw people in danger, and he acted. He met Meridian's gaze without flinching. That is what Earth is. Not predators seeking power, not monsters waiting to conquer. We are survivors who understand that the only way to truly survive is to help others survive too. We will fight the void. We will protect the weak. We will stand against any threat that preys on the innocent. He paused. But we will not become the threat ourselves. That is my promise to you, High Chancellor. Earth came to this galaxy not to rule it, but to serve it. Meridian studied him for a long time. Tomorrow, the Council will judge your species, she said finally. The major powers will demand punishment. They will argue that Earth must be contained, controlled, perhaps destroyed. They fear what you represent. And what do you think? Her light shifted to colors that the translator rendered as something between hope and uncertainty. I think the galaxy has spent too long fearing the wrong things. Perhaps it is time we learn to fear inaction instead. She turned away. Make your case well, Ambassador. Your species' future depends on it. Raymond watched her go. Then he returned to his quarters to prepare. Tomorrow, he would face the judgment of 10,000 worlds. Tomorrow, he would show them what humanity truly was. And somewhere, in whatever afterlife awaited Deathworlders, David Cole would be watching. The Supreme Judgment Chamber was designed to make defendants feel small. Its galleries rose in endless tiers toward a ceiling lost in artificial darkness. Its floor was transparent, showing the spinning galaxy beneath, like a reminder of how insignificant any single species truly was. Its acoustics were engineered to amplify doubt and fear in the voices of those who stood before it. Ambassador Raymond Cole walked to the center of that chamber and felt none of those things. 12,000 representatives filled the galleries. The Velkari occupied entire sections with their reptilian bulk. The mycelium spread through another quarter, their fungal networks connecting thousands of individual bodies into a single distributed consciousness. The ancient species sat in positions of honor, being so old that they remembered the formation of the first stars. And in a small section near the front, surrounded by hostile glares and protective barriers, sat the Luminari. Every single survivor who had been rescued from Sanctuary was present. 4 million lights in a sea of darkness, waiting to hear what would happen to the species that had saved them. High Chancellor Meridian rose from the central dais. Her light filled the chamber with authority that had governed civilizations for 12 millennia. This tribunal convenes to pass judgment on the species designated human, native to the planet Earth in the outer spiral arm. The accused stands charged with violation of territorial boundaries, deployment of prohibited weapons, interference in Council protocols, and the killing of entities protected under the Dimensional Preservation Acts. She turned to face Raymond directly. How does the accused respond to these charges? Raymond did not hesitate. The accused responds with this. He activated the device he had brought with him. The distress signal that had started everything filled the chamber. A child's voice, screaming for help, describing horrors that most species could not imagine. When it ended, the silence was absolute. 62 days ago, Earth received that signal, Raymond said. A child, begging the universe for someone to save her. The Galactic Council received the same signal. Your response was to quarantine the planet and prepare to destroy it. Our response was different. He looked around the chamber, meeting eyes and sensors and organs of perception from species across the galaxy. We sent our children to die for yours. Elder Brightmoon rose from her seat. As a survivor and a recognized representative, she had the right to speak. The Council should know what humanity sacrificed for my people. Her voice carried through the translation systems, reaching every being in the chamber. 12 soldiers landed on Sanctuary. They fought creatures that have terrorized this galaxy for 10,000 years. They held back the darkness so that our children could escape. She paused, her light flickering with remembered grief. 9 of them died on that planet. They died protecting strangers. They died because they believed that no child should be abandoned to darkness. She turned to face the Velkari section directly. The containment fleet had 47 warships. You could have fought. You chose to let us burn. Earth had 1 carrier and 12 soldiers. They chose to save us. The chamber erupted. Representatives from a dozen species shouted accusations. Others demanded silence. The Velkari delegation was on their feet, their translator units struggling to keep up with their fury. Meridian restored order with a pulse of light that temporarily overwhelmed every sensor in the room. The testimony is noted. The prosecution may present its case. Admiral Velkathos stepped forward. He had prepared his arguments for weeks, marshaling every legal precedent, every treaty violation, every technical breach that humanity had committed. The humans have demonstrated dangerous capabilities that threaten galactic stability, he began. Their weapons can harm beings that exist outside normal space. Their soldiers can survive conditions that would kill any civilized species. Their willingness to ignore established protocols shows that they cannot be trusted to follow the rules that have maintained peace for millions of years. He pointed at Raymond. His species is 3 centuries old. They have no wisdom, no patience, no understanding of the consequences of their actions. If we allow their violation to go unpunished, we invite chaos. Every minor species with a grievance will believe they can ignore council authority. The mycelium representative spoke next, her voice emerging from 1,000 mouths simultaneously. The economic implications are equally concerning. Humanity has demonstrated technology that could revolutionize our understanding of dimensional physics. They have refused to share this technology with council oversight. What else are they hiding? What other capabilities have they developed in secret? Other accusations followed. Humanity was too violent, too unpredictable, too willing to act without permission. The prosecution painted a picture of a species that was fundamentally incompatible with civilized society. Through it all, Raymond listened silently. When the prosecution rested, Meridian turned to him. The accused may respond. Raymond stepped forward. Everything the prosecution has said is true. The chamber fell silent. Earth is young. We are violent. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day, and we survived by becoming the most dangerous thing on our planet. Our history is written in blood. Our nature is shaped by conflict. He paused. But you have misunderstood what that means. He began to walk, moving through the chamber's center, forcing representatives to crane their necks to follow him. Every species in this galaxy evolved on worlds where life was easy. Your climates were gentle. Your predators were manageable. Your environments were stable. You developed intelligence because you had time to think, to build, to grow. He stopped, turning to face the gallery. Earth was different. Our planet had ice ages that covered continents, volcanic eruptions that blotted out the sun, predators that made your nightmares look like children's stories. We did not develop intelligence because we had time to think. We developed it because it was the only way to survive. His voice hardened. That history taught us something that none of you understand. It taught us that survival means more than keeping yourself alive. It means protecting your community, supporting your neighbors, standing between the innocent and the darkness, even when the darkness might kill you. He pointed at the luminary section. 9 humans died on Sanctuary. They knew they would probably die before they ever landed on that planet. They went anyway, not because Earth ordered them to, not because they expected rewards. They went because they heard children screaming, and they could not do nothing. He let that sink in. You call us Deathworlders. You mean it as a warning. But you should understand what Deathworlds create. They do not create monsters. They create guardians. Beings who know that the universe is hostile, that darkness is everywhere. That survival requires fighting for every single moment of life. He smiled, and for the first time, there was warmth in it. That is what Earth offers the galaxy. Not conquest, not domination, protection. We will fight the void. We will stand against any threat that preys on the weak. We will die for strangers, because that is what our world taught us to be. He turned to face Meridian directly. You can punish us for what we did. You can sanction us, isolate us, even try to destroy us. But you should ask yourself a question first. He raised his voice so it carried to every corner of the chamber. The next time the void attacks, who will you call? The species that follows protocols while children die? Or the Deathworlders who come when you cry for help? The vote was not unanimous. The Velkari voted for severe sanctions. The mycelium abstained, calculating angles that no one else could perceive. Ancient species divided according to motivations that younger races could not understand, but the majority voted to acquit Earth was cleared of all charges in the aftermath. Representatives who had never acknowledged humanity's existence lined up to meet. Ambassador Cole, species that had been content to let Earth remain isolated, suddenly wanted alliances. Partnerships, protection agreements. The galaxy had found new guardians. It would take time to understand what that meant. Raymond found Elder Brightmoon in a quiet observation area, watching the stars through a viewport that stretched the length of the station. You saved more than my people today, she said as he approached. You gave the galaxy something it has not had for a very long time. What is that? Hope. Her light shifted to colors that the translator rendered as profound gratitude. For millions of years, the void have been inevitable, unstoppable. Species lived in terror, knowing that one day the darkness might come for them, and no one could help. She turned to face him. Now they know that Earth will come, that humans will fight, that Deathworlders do not abandon the innocent. Raymond thought about his brother, about the 9 soldiers who had died on Sanctuary, about the price Earth had paid for this moment. It cost us everything, he said quietly. It cost you nothing that you would not have given freely. Bright Moon's light pulsed with understanding. That is what makes you different. That is what makes you terrifying and wonderful and worthy of the galaxy's trust. She reached out, carefully touching his arm with appendages that were soft as silk. Your brother died a hero, but more importantly, he died proving that Earth creates heroes, that your species' capacity for violence is matched by an even greater capacity for sacrifice. Raymond was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. We will honor them, he said. All of them. By doing what they did. By answering every call for help. By standing between the darkness and the light, no matter the cost. He looked out at the stars. That is what Deathworlders do. Across the galaxy, the news spread. Earth had been acquitted. The humans had proven themselves. The species that the Council had dismissed as primitives had demonstrated something that civilizations far older had never achieved. They had given the universe hope. And in the void between stars, something stirred. Something ancient. Something that had created the void as a weapon millions of years ago and had been waiting, watching, testing the galaxy ever since the architects had found a species worthy of their attention. A message began to travel toward Earth, simple, direct, containing coordinates to a location. Beyond the galactic rim, you have passed our test. Come to us. We have much to discuss about the future of your kind. The wolves of Earth had proven themselves. Now they would learn who had been watching them hunt and whether they were ready for what came next.